Welcome to Backstage with Richard Ridge. I am once again at the Rosevale Cocktail Room at Civilian, NYC. After starring 45 years ago in the original iconic production of Bob Fosse's Dancin', Tony Award-winning director-choreographer Wayne Cilento has brought the show back to Broadway. It is pure Fosse choreography, and it is directed, reimagined for the 21st century, and musical staged by my guests. Please welcome Wayne Cilento. I am so happy, my friend, to be sitting with you here at the Civilian, at the Rosevale Cocktail Room. How cool is this room?
I love this room. It's
right?
wicked.
Yeah, one of your shows is up here, many more to follow.
Here's my shoes I wore in one show. No,
you never know. We're going to curate this room for you. First of all, welcome back to Broadway.
Thank you.
How does it feel to be back here with Dancin'?
It's so exciting. I never expected something like this to happen, but it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have the opportunity to do this. Not easy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not an easy task, but especially, you go back, it's 45 years. And so what would he do now if he was doing Dancin'? Well, probably a little bit of what I've done, probably beyond and any of that, but it was a challenge.
Well, let's go back to the beginning because you were part of the original production. I have the fondest memories of seeing that at the Broadhurst Theater. So many wonderful people in that. But how did you get involved at Dancin'?
It was an accident, but then maybe it wasn't an accident because Graciela, Danielle, I used to assist her. She used to assist Alan Johnson. We did Milliken shows together. I got to know Gracie and Alan and all that stuff. And then Gracie started, and I was Gracie's assistant, so it's like a family.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. So I get the act, and I go out, leave Chorus Line, and I go away. And I go to L.A., I don't know where that was, San Francisco, L.A. We traveled around a little bit. It was called Shine It On. Yeah. And so I was out of town, and he was doing auditions for Dancin'. I didn't even think twice about it because I was out of town. So when I got back, Graciela called me up, and she said, I set up an audition for you to meet Bob. And you're rehearsing at the Minskoff. In the Minskoff, there was a hallway, rehearsal hall. Bob was doing pre-production. We were rehearsing because we were just about to open. So I ran across the hall. Lunchtime, and there's Ann Reinking, there's Bob, Gordon Harrell, drummer, and they say, hello, hug everybody, like we know each other forever, and we started dancing. I mean, not even talking, just taught me combinations. I did the combination, Annie did it with me, Bob did it with the three of us. Then he'd step out, and Annie and I would keep dancing, I would do it alone, and then he said, okay, you want to sing? And I said, sure. I went to the piano. I mean, I'm telling you, it was like a fantasy come true. And I went to the piano and I sang the song, and he raised my keys a couple of times, and he shook my hand and he said, it was such a pleasure, nice meeting you. I said, thank you so much. I kissed Annie goodbye. I got in the hall, and it was like I was in a Fellini movie, and I floated back to the rehearsal hall, and I thought, you know what? And he says to me, the show's cast. He said, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, no problem. Thank you so much. And I left, and I went back, and opening night, and we're going through opening night, and I'm doing that step, I don't know, with that round circular step, and I'm doing this thing right in the middle of the stage, and there I look out, and there's Bob Fosse staring at me like eye to eye, like not even a doubt, staring at me, and I went, fuck me. So I got myself together and kept going, finished the show, went to the party. I run into Bob, and Bob says, I want you. And I said, you want me for what? And he said, for the show. I said, but you said it was cast. He said, don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. I said, I'm in. Just you can't tell Liza because she'll kill me. I was the dance captain at that time. So I doubled, and it worked out perfect.
All right, this is like a dream.
And of course, she was so happy for me. Yeah.
Well, this is a dream. So here you are doing Liza Minnelli's show, The Act, one of my favorite shows, which we'll get into.
Right.
And then you go across the hallway after doing a cleanup rehearsal. You're about to open on Broadway, and you get to meet with Bob Fosse and Ann Reinking.
That was the first official meeting. Wow. I did audition for Chicago. He didn't see me. I got cut really quick. I mean, God only knows what he was looking for. But I went in, and I went out, and it was done. But I was doing the workshop of Chorus Line, so it was like, okay, fine, that's no problem. Next one, I really wanted to see that show. I heard it was amazing, but I never got to see it because I was in Chorus Line.
That is crazy. Everybody was on the same playing schedule back then.
Absolutely. So You know what?
What was he? So you're in the room with Bob Fosse. I mean, you got to work with him not only on Dancin, but of course we'll get into Big Deal later.
Right.
What did you learn from him, not only as a choreographer, but as a director?
He was so quiet and so internal, and so you always try to figure out what was in his head. Yeah. And I think that was the mystery and the charm of him, was because he had so clear of an intention of everything that he was doing. So that's why it took him so long to, I think, to come up with steps. And he did his own pre-production, and I don't even think he did it with people in the room with him. I mean, he's that kind of meticulous person. Choreographic, everything meant something, small gestures, big gestures, whatever it was. And then, you know, just knowing him, it's so interesting because when I went back for Dancin, for this production, and I wanted to do like a whole nother sweep of just evaluating him and doing research on him to see who he was, what the man was, how he danced as a dancer, everything that he danced, he choreographed. I mean, he was so true to himself. So he had this physique. He was an incredible technician, but his shoulders were a little bit round. He was a little bit more turned in than turned out. He wasn't a ballet dancer. Flew, but he always had this character thing going on. So he was unique in everything that he's done. So I'm watching all of this footage, and I'm going, oh my God, he's so special. So when I got into this, and I knew Dancin was Dancin, and then I thought, okay, well, I had an opportunity. I mean, see, I think maybe Bob in the beginning said, okay, I just want to do a show with nothing on my back. I don't want a book. I don't want this. I don't want that. I just want to dance. I want to do whatever. I want to dance with dancers, and he loved dancers. I said, but, you know, I think he had an intention because, okay, if you think about it, it's a dance concert format, 3 acts. If he wanted to do a dance concert, he should have went to a dance concert hall. He didn't have to do it on Broadway. So intentionally, he was doing a dance concert format in a Broadway house, in a theatrical venue. Okay. So what does that say? Yeah. So that's a whole head trip in itself. So, I mean, even though we were saying, like, there's no book, there's no hidden messages, there's always a message. He's never like a blank slate. There's always something going on. When you dig into his choreography, you need to get a conceptual idea of where he's coming from, or maybe where I was coming from, or any choice that I made, but I had to make a choice. Otherwise, the steps don't come alive. So that not being said, and I don't even think he even like drilled that or directed us to do that. It was the interpretation and how I studied him. Yeah. I was in the act, and I was dancing at night, and I was rehearsing in the day. So because I was so tired, and I was like really containing my energy, and I wanted to be 150% when I got on the floor for him, I just sat off to the side. I was quiet. I didn't fuck around. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't play. I didn't do anything. I just focused. And I just studied him. And I think it really paid off. And, you know, I didn't do it like intentionally, like a crazy loon. I was just tired. So I was just waiting for him to call me. And he always called me. So I just go back into my corner and run back on the floor, back in the corner, run about. But he's very deep. He was just so deep. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about this. I thought about this last night. So we're in Boston, and we're into previews. And I think maybe we were like a week or so into previews, or I think it was early in the game. And at that point, he already cut Big City Mine. Yeah. Because that wasn't working. And at that point, that was just a vignette. Those were just vignettes. And the vignettes are still in the number that I created. But I followed his storyboard, and I just kind of filled it in with choreography from him. Okay, so we'll get back to that later. But so somewhere in the middle of it, we're doing the matinee. We did the matinee, and he comes up to me, like, or knocks on my door. I don't know how the hell he did it, but he went, "Hey, Wayne, I want you to try something for me tonight." I said, "Okay." And he hands me this monologue. I said, "Oh, okay, when do you want me to do this?" He said, "Tonight." I said, okay, fine. So And there you go. So I went to dinner, and I'm like, I'm reading, I'm trying to memorize, and I'm going, oh my God, oh my God. And I got really pretty far, but I did a number of myself. I got to the middle, and I thought, I'm never going to remember this. What if I don't remember this? So I made a cheat sheet. So I said to Bob, I got it. And then I'm thinking, he could have asked anyone.
Yeah.
Already he was on me. He was like, I'm going to go to him. I'm going to go to him. And it's like, I'm kind of realizing that he really trusted me. And he was trying things out with me. I mean, he could have went to John Mineo.
Yeah.
If he was looking for a little small guy, he could have went all around. I mean, Johnny was, we were mirrors anyway. So I get out there, and we just started with Crunchy Granola with the ballet thing, and then so now this whole thing, come through the middle, go to my spot, and start. The Surgeon General has determined that the viewing of too many musicals could be harmful for a playgoer and the critics, and then it went on and on and on. Somewhere in the middle of it, I blank out. And I go, I take this little paper out, I take off the paper. Now the audience is screaming. They're hysterical, screaming. And I finished the monologue, and I put it, I said, good evening, and went out. Fuck me. And I went off. And so, anyway, I saw him later. I said, I'm so sorry. And he said, no, I want you to do it like that every night.
Yeah.
Pull the paper. I said, with the paper? He said, yeah, exactly the way you did it. I said, okay. So, what I'm getting to is, he knew he needed something to set the audience up for either a farce or bullshitting them or whatever. But yes, there was an intention for this, and yes, it was a dance concert, but no, it did have messages and it did have a meaning. So he was setting that up. And once we put that in, the show got onto another level. It's so interesting. This time around, I wanted to incorporate, the COVID, and I was going to say something about masks, and I thought, no, by the time we open, the mask will be gone. But I wanted to address genders because this world is about that stuff. So I wanted to incorporate all of the stuff that socially, politically is so intense right now in this world that we live in. So that's why I added that extra stuff. But the meaning was exactly what he put out there, because it's almost word to word, word for word. So, I mean, I think, maybe the original didn't really have like a book, and he didn't want a book, but there was definitely hidden through lines in there somehow. The ballet bar, that was cut. Of course, you know that Annie was going out with Charles. Yeah. And there was a whole thing with all of that. Yeah. And I think he did that number intentionally to expose them. And I think critically it was not a happy thing. Yeah. And so I said, no way, I'm not going with that. And I just got rid of it. He didn't get rid of it, but I got rid of it. He got rid of Big City Mime because it just wasn't going anywhere. It was just like vignettes. It was no dancing, no nothing. So I thought, listen, everything has a meaning. So directorially, I needed to stay in Bob's head and know exactly what I was doing. It couldn't be like, oh, I'm just going to do a dance number. Yeah. It's always, what is this dance number about? What's happening over here? What is he doing? Why did he do this? That kind of stuff. So, it was interesting. But I think the reflection of what I kind of did with directing and staging this whole thing with the company was to give them the license and the freedom to individually insert themselves, because that's how I feel he taught us. Yeah. I mean, he didn't pick us apart. It wasn't one of those shows where it's like fingertips. I mean, yes, it comes into play with Dancin' Man. You have to have the line and all of that stuff, and it pays off. But it wasn't like most of the stuff. Most of the stuff was his choreography. You watch him, you interpret it, and you insert whatever you want to insert to get through the show. And that's what I did. And he never got back. He never came to me and said, hey, you're not doing that right, or anything. So I thought, okay, I'm doing it right. So I'm just going to keep going with whatever I'm doing. And I gave them the freedom and the luxury to do that. And I think it's brought Bob back in a better way. It's brought him back to life, and got him back on Broadway the way he should be.
No, because he let you all be a personality.
Exactly.
You were Wayne Cilento. It was Anne Ranking. It was Charles Ward. It was
Exactly.
John Mineo. Everybody had their own. It was a Fosse step, but it was seen through these individual
But you
people
saw these
who
individual
became,
people.
who became stars, or
Yeah,
were able
totally.
to shine.
Totally.
So, 22 dancers in your show right now on
Right.
stage, right? I mean,
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I've asked you this before. What did you look for, like when you were seeing all these people? What made you say, I want that one, I want that one, I want this one?
I went in
Yeah.
with an open mind because I didn't want to go with any expectation, or
Yeah.
I didn't want to cast it thinking about how Bob cast it. So like he, obviously had 6 gorgeous women, tall, leggy, beautiful, all different shapes and size, gorgeous. And he had me and Johnny, 2 small little guys, and he had Geneva Burke, and he had Jill Cook, small women, great little dancers. Geneva was a concert dancer, so we had that. And then he had the men that were eclectic, Ed Love, and then Ross Miles. Ross Miles. Is that his name?
Charles Ward?
Charles Ward.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an eclectic group of guys, and they were big guys. Johnny and I were the small ones. So he did do his eclectic kind of mismatch. And then he had Robert, what's his name? The little guy, the old man.
Oh,
Rick Cortez.
Yeah, who was in
Cortez.
Pippin.
Well, yeah, and Bob puts him in everything.
Yeah.
Just to shake it up a little bit. So I went in there and I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna see what's out there. We went through like 700 people, and we couldn't do like 100 in the room or 50 like we usually do. So it was like 35, 40, and you get a group, and we did a combination with eclectic stuff from Bob's vocabulary and put it together, and we did it to contemporary music. So it was kind of fun and interesting. And you know what? You go in the room and you look at the room, and before you even break it down, and I'd pull out. I'd dance a little bit, but I'd pull out and I'd start spotting some people that were catching my eye.
Yeah.
And then you break it down, and then you see if it's true, if that person's great or not. Sometimes they're a mess, and sometimes you go, I was right on. So then you keep those people. So you start picking apart, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then you start looking, we need someone that can act a little bit stronger, has a good voice. So then you start picking apart that kind of stuff, and you kind of sort out the best out of that group. And I came up with this incredible, eclectic, gorgeous group of incredible dancers.
But what I love about your new production that you directed, you've added other parts of Bob's later career. Like Big Deal was one of my favorite shows, which we might as well get into this now.
Right.
You got to do Big Deal with him. That was his last time on Broadway. I love that.
Yes,
At the
yes.
Broadway Theater. I loved everything about that show.
Yeah, me too. It was a gorgeous show. And
Yeah.
it was, it was cut short. And I think, at that time, I don't know, politically there was something going on with the Schuberts, and evidently they booked the theater with another show.
Yeah.
We won the Tony that Sunday, and then we were closed the next week. So it was like heartbreaking. But I felt very strongly about just tipping my hat to him and doing like, a tribute to him from his last Broadway musical. How do I do that? I mean, it came in a really weird place because, yes, everything's all dance and singing and carrying on. You're having a great time, and then all of a sudden I'm doing a book musical situation, and I did catch it at the right point. Maybe in San Diego I didn't catch it, but the dialogue was a little bit too long and a little bit too much information, and the audience didn't really follow what the hell we were talking about. So I just cut it, just really finely put it together so that Charlie had a character, Lily had a character, and Kokomo were the 3 that were bouncing off each other, and I just did the most limited amount of dialogue because, the audience is prepped. Now they just want to see the next number. And this is about integrating the prison cell tap number with the scene woven into it, and they froze or they dispersed and they came back and the scene went on. So it was all kind of like a film. I mean, he went to another place in his directorial way of putting a musical together, which I got the opportunity of seeing that, which made me feel really great and blessed that happened, because I really kind of wanted this show to feel like a film and kind of like move it like he moved Big Deal. So we did that. But with the other stuff, it was funny because, of course, you do note sheets and you do running orders and you run this number and you just switch this number with that number and you take something from the second act and you put it in there and you do all of this and then throw it out. So finally kind of like got it down to a place, and it was like, okay, I'm going to do the monologue. I'm going to do Crunchy Granola because that's what it started with. Crunchy Granola went into Bojangles. I should really do that. And it's so weird. I fell into his running order. And then we got to where Big City Mime was. And I thought, there's something in that number I should really get to. And so I thought, this is a perfect opportunity to get into all of his work.
Yeah.
The Sweet Charities, the Liza with the Z, the Pippin, the Cabaret, and I did that. And the Snake Dance, and the Alley Dance. And so I started doing research. We spent 6 weeks on pre-production just on that number.
Yeah.
It was a blank slate. So they were creating music. And we didn't know what the music was, but I wanted it to sound like Big Spender. But could we do Big Spender? Or maybe we can't. We can't, or could we? But I was like, don't take the chance. You know, we don't want to get the rights to everything that we're going to touch. And then eventually we got down to a place where, you know what? This is about Bob Fosse. He owned all of this stuff. He did this work. I wanted to give the audience a whole sweep of his career and who that man was. So when you think about No Story, I actually think, and I'm just saying this to you and the whole world, but I actually think there's a through line about Bob's life in this piece. So anyone that doesn't know about Fosse could walk out of that theater and go, wow, that's an interesting, really creative genius. And that was Bob Fosse. And I used all the dialogue, pretty much everything that he said with anyone that speaks. Kind of, it's like his voice, but it's coming through dancers taking on him and moving the story along. So I said story. But I do think there's a through line. And I think there's a message. And the message is, get to know Bob Fosse, who the man truly is. So, you know, some people say it's long, some people don't, some love it. I mean, I'm very proud of it.
You should be. It's, like I said, I saw the original many, many times, but I love what you did from a reimagining and a directorial standpoint of moving more of Bob into this, of the stuff that happened later for him after Dancin. So, I mean, the whole picture you show is absolutely superb.
Yeah, well,
you did such a beautiful job.
Thank you.
How life-changing and career-changing was being a part of Dancin the first time around for you?
It changed everything for me. So you know how quickly I moved from Chorus Line, went straight to Liza?
Yeah.
Dancin, after it was a year and a half or so, and I felt like I needed to get out because I was at that point. And I always put myself out online, tell you the truth. But after I got the Tony nomination, that was the game changer for me. It was like, now where do I go? Do I really want to go back into an ensemble? Not really. I mean, I would have, but not really. I shouldn't. If I wanted to have any kind of a career, I should have just kind of like followed it in a different path. And at that point, I was dancing in commercials. I met Bob Giraldi. I met Steve Horn. Lee Theodore took me. I was dancing and all this stuff. And then I got a call from Bob Giraldi. Said, I'm shooting Dr. Pepper. Do you want to choreograph this spot? And I went, sure. Never choreographed before. And I was like, and I started choreographing commercials. And I did over 100.
Yeah.
And I got to learn how to use a camera and fill up the lens and make real people move and dancers look like real people. And it was directorial, choreography, no choreography, but whatever it was. And that's how I started. And then I got a couple of industrials, and then I did some off-Broadway show in the church. What's that church on Fifth Avenue? It's a church.
Were you at the York?
Huh?
Was it the York Theater Company at the time?
No, I don't know.
It was St. Luke's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you do?
They used to do shows there.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that.
It's all good. Okay.
You probably know.
Well, I want to go back first. We're going to start with debuts because your debuts are really, really important.
Okay.
And your Broadway debut is one of my favorite musicals, Seesaw.
Okay.
What do you remember? How magical was that for you? Like, now I'm on Broadway. I'm in a Michael Bennett musical.
That was a rough one for me because I auditioned.
Did you start in Detroit? Did you start with the original?
Yes.
So
yes.
it was Edward Sheeran and
Yes.
and Grover Dale was the original for all
and
the
Laney
Seesaw fans.
Kazan,
Laney
the whole
Kazan and
bit.
Ken Howard. Okay,
Yeah,
so
the
you
whole
were
bit.
in Detroit first at the
Right.
Fisher.
So, but I
Okay.
went through like months and months of auditioning, and I was in college in Brockport, and I was running back and forth 6 hours, back and forth, and I kept going, blah, blah, blah. And I knew they finally gave me a call and said, "You're in the cast of Seesaw," and I was like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
thank God."
So then you went to Detroit.
Then I went to Detroit, and the show was kind of a bomb.
Yeah.
But so we didn't know it was a bomb. We were just killing ourselves. And then we find out Michael Bennett's in there with Bjork Lee and Tommy Walsh and his entourage.
Yeah.
And the next day, and Grover Dale.
Yeah.
Grover Dale was tapping people on the shoulder going, "Don't come back tomorrow. Don't come back tomorrow." I was hiding in clothes racks. I didn't want anyone to touch me. He fired 15 people and all the principals. 15 chorus people and all the principals.
And he had to, right? He had to.
He had to. And in 2 weeks, he changed the whole show, brought in, that one?
Michelle Lee?
Michelle Lee. God, I loved her to death. Michelle Lee and the whole group. And we got to New York. We started previewing. And we opened. And it was like a whole nother show. An amazing, amazing show.
So you watched how someone like Michael Bennett, you could watch how someone could take a show that wasn't working at all,
Absolutely.
and then just redoing the whole thing. And by the time you open, it was
Throw
a
it
love
out.
letter.
Yep, absolutely.
And I think the only reason why Seesaw really closed is because they ran out of money. Because people love the show.
Yeah. Oh, I know. We moved to one of the
Mark
theaters.
Hellinger, you opened at the Uris, then moved right across the street. I think that killed whatever it was back then. I'm sure it was,
We should have just stayed where we were. We would have been fine. But and it was a big theater. So, I mean, that's a lot.
What do you remember about opening night of Seesaw at the Uris? Like, you were here in New York, you're finally here.
It was pretty exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Michelle Lee.
Yeah.
She's, like, for her, look at her, you look at Cheetah, you look at Liza. She's one of those people.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, my God. She's a force of nature. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a great show. It was a great show.
Then you went into a flop show that I know many people at Broadway World are going to hear about because, like I said, the poster hangs on my wall. Rachel Lily Rosenblum, and don't you ever forget it. Paul Jabara, Tom Ian. I mean, what do you remember? Was it a big mess?
I remember I was a swing. I covered all the men, and I prayed every night for the show to close. And one night I went on in a pink G-string in a cage, and I did like this boogaloo thing, and I was like, okay, I'm so done. I'm so done. And you know what? It was the biggest bomb hit you could possibly be in. We never opened, but we did close. Thank God. That was messed. Then I went back to Seesaw, and I went, can I come back? They said no.
Because you left, right?
Because I left. And then there was an opening in Irene, what's his name?
Peter Gennaro.
Who? Yeah, Peter Gennaro, but Albert Stevenson
okay.
was leaving, and I went into Albert Stevenson's place. So Debbie was still
Debbie Reynolds.
performing. I danced with her for a while, and then Jane Powell came in, and then I started doing the
tape sessions,
the readings, and the tape sessions, and even the rehearsals.
Okay, so this for a chorus line. So you're doing Irene,
right.
and then just everybody knows, but still, but it's like you call them tape sessions,
Yeah.
So you went down. And did you know early on what these tape sessions were going to be? Here you are with Michael Bennett and a small group of dancers.
Yeah.
And you're talking about.
Well, you know Tony Stevens, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you know Michonne Peacock.
Sure.
Okay, so I dance with them all the time. And I even danced with Tony for Peter Gennaro and a whole bunch of stuff. The two of us were like two clones. And they got disgusted. And so they came up with an idea that there should be a show for dancers. Because dancers are the hidden secret in musicals. I mean, the musical could be crap, but the choreography is like insanely great. Great numbers. So they had this idea about they wanted to do a show for dancers. Well, they couldn't get dancers like Tommy Walsh, me, and the people that were performing on Broadway into a room at 12 o'clock at night unless they had like a prototype. So they went to Michael, and they said to Michael, we have this idea.
This is Michael Bennett.
Would you just, I'm sorry. Would you just kind of give us the seal of approval? And he said, yes, I would. So then I called Tommy, I go, are you going? He said, yeah, are you going? I said, yeah, sure, fine. So we went. And then they didn't know this, but then Michael showed up. So Tony gave us a class at 12 o'clock at night, and then we sat around in a circle, and we did like a therapy session. And Michael started it. He said, we're going to go around the room, and we're going to talk about our life when we were a kid and when we started dancing and when we got the first Broadway show that you got to. That was the first session. And Michael went around and he talked about his childhood, being homosexual, being straight, everything. He just threw up. And of course, that set the tone.
Yeah, for everybody else.
And we all went around and we all like threw up our brains and we got through it. It was like, I think, I'm not lying, it was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, from 12 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, just talking all night. Went away. They did another session. I taught this time. And then we went around again, and that was like from Broadway where we are today, up to our career. And we did the same thing going around. And that was it. And then we had to go in and audition for ourselves.
So here you tell the story of Mike.
Well, this is so perfect. Wait, this is so perfect. So of course I go in there and they give me the script. They give me a script and I'm reading it and it's like, it's what I said. It was like the seesaw audition, like all of this stuff. And I went there and this, that, and I went to him, I can't do this. He said, oh, just read it. I said, no, I can't read this. It's ridiculous. How am I going to read what I said? He said, put the damn paper down and just tell me the story. But you know what? People went in there and they didn't get their lives.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. But that was my relationship with Michael. So Mike is not so far-fetched from Wayne and Michael.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of like that stayed.
Yeah.
Start at the end. I'll be much happier if you started on the end. No, Mike, I'll start with you. You know, that kind of thing. It was that relationship.
But you met so many wonderful people, because I remember opening night of Dancin, opening night on Broadway this time, you had Donna McKechnie, Bjork Lee, Priscilla Lopez.
Yeah.
So happy to be there, all dressed up.
I know, they said, we
Wayne.
came to support you. We came to support you. I was shocked.
Yeah.
And then Donna, I was just telling you, wrote me such a beautiful note. It just warms my heart. She's just a sweet woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. It meant everything to me.
So after a chorus line, you went to...
After a chorus line, I went to the act.
Yeah. All right, so we were talking about Liza earlier, the act. People are going to be like, what act's he talking about?
What are they talking about?
Believe me, we're talking about the act.
Yeah.
Shine It On or whatever. I mean,
exactly.
Working with Liza Minnelli in the act, one of my favorite shows, like I said, City Lights.
And Ron Lewis was the choreographer, and I
Lewis.
wanted to dance for him. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back and dance, and Liza was the perfect person for me. So we got into it. I moved my whole family to LA. I had 3 kids at that time. And we just went around from San Francisco to LA and back to New York.
Yeah.
From Shine It On, I went to the act. Halston did the costumes, wool pants that when you sweat, you know how wool grows? I had a lot of material in my leg from sweat, so that wasn't good. So they had to get rid of Halston and get like a regular costume designer in there
to design for the dancers.
Right, for the dancers. But of course, Liza looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
No one looks anything better than Colston with her. But anyway.
But that must have been spectacular.
Just so
opening
spectacular.
night in New York, because I was at the part you were tapping on the green.
Wasn't it Scorsese?
Yeah.
He was the original. He was the director.
Well, but Gower Champion came in,
So
right?
he was like this.
Yeah.
So we were on the stage doing a number, and he was going like this. We're going, what the hell is he doing? He was doing it for the lens.
So where's my trailer?
Right. So he put Liza in a chair with the light over there. The whole stage is empty.
But of course, Gower Champion came in.
Yeah, of course.
Because
he
Fred
did.
and Johnny asked, John Kenner and Fred asked Gower Champion to come in. And I understand he took all the numbers on cards and rearranged everything around to rearrange everything, right?
Yeah. And then change the whole act.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
All right, opening night, what do you remember? Because I was at Tavern on the Green. That's where your party was.
Oh, no,
and you're dancing with her.
Yeah, I remember my fedora hat, and I looked very cool. And Cal, you know what? You don't see people in those kind of opening nights.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just see I saw Liza, of course I saw Liza and stuff like that. But it was so grand and so beautiful. I don't even think we did something like that in Chorus Line. Chorus Line, he rented out 890.
Yeah.
And did the whole,
But you had a big deal at Tavern on the Green for the act.
Amazing. It was amazing.
Spectacular. Okay, I want to talk about getting into choreographing next. So was Baby your first big job as a choreographer on Broadway?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was after me doing all the choreography for commercials and stuff.
Okay.
And then I started playing around with industrials and stuff, and then I did an off-Broadway show. And then,
And then Liza's big act, of course, at Carnegie Hall,
right, and then
1979,
I
huge.
did that.
Yeah, choreographed that. It was,
And I don't even know when Cheetah came into play, when I started dancing for Cheetah and I was flip-flopping.
Yeah.
So Cheetah would keep me in shape. It was like I would wait for the phone to ring because Cheetah would call me up and go, "We're going to Japan."
Yeah.
Oh my God, I got into shape. So then I get into shape and I get on the plane and I go to Japan and I go back and then I start choreographing again. So, I mean, she was my lifeline.
Yeah. Because first it was Cheetah plus 2, then it was Cheetah plus 3.
Right,
And I
right.
think it was you, Tony Stevens. There's so many different people that changed during
Right,
that
well,
time period.
originally it was Tony and Chris Chadman.
Yep.
And then I think Chris left and then I went in,
Yep.
or someone else went in, but I went in and then Tony and I, then Tony left and then, I was there for a while.
Michael came in, then Frank
And
DeSalvo, Cheetah's boys. But you were one of Cheetah's boys.
Exactly.
So you would get the call and you just travel all around the world with her.
Yeah, and that was the best thing. And then I would choreograph. So
Yeah,
then
yeah.
I got.
So you got Baby.
I got Baby.
Yeah.
And I got a Tony nomination.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my God, now I have to do this. Yeah. And then I got Jerry's Girls, and then it just kind of like kept going for a while. And then I think I got a phone call. I did Jerry's Girls, did something else, and then Bob called me. Bob Fosse called me. And he said, I'm doing a show. And I said, okay. He said, do you want to be in it? I said, of course. He said, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And we're going to start, blah, 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 blah. I said, okay, fine. So I was completely fat and out of shape because I was choreographing, so I wasn't, but only for Cheetah. If I had to get it together, I would get it together. But, and then I went and I did Big Deal. And it was the best thing that I did. I actually think it was the best that I ever danced on Broadway.
Yeah.
Because I was like mature and secure and confident, and I felt really comfortable with Bob. And again, I was the narrator. Bruce and I were killing ourselves. We danced every minute and sang and did the whole bit. It was a glorious show.
Yeah.
So talented. The company was so talented. So he's such a genius. He's just so ahead of his time. He always wanted to push the envelope. He always was ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no black musicals around. And this wasn't a black musical, but all the principals were black. And it was way before it even happened.
Yeah.
He just was on top of it.
Yeah. We have to talk about the Who's Tommy. St.
yeah.
James Theater.
Yeah.
Amazing. Kiss of a Spider Woman was across the street at the Broadhurst.
Right.
So I know you guys all had your windows open, yelling back and forth, whatever. But I mean, how life-changing was that, working with The Who and Pete Townsend and all of them?
That was so incredible. But that was an interesting job for me because Des and Pete both, and they did the movie of The Who. And was
Des McAnuff? Pete Townsend, your dear friend.
No, keep me straight. I know. I talk about it's like they're my friends.
They are.
I know, but they're big people.
Yeah, totally.
They said to me, "We don't want to see any dancing," and I went, "Oh, okay, fine, got it." And so I knew I needed to go and do mannerisms and body language and just attitude and stuff like that. And I started doing research, and I found this postcard of Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And it was he was in that Jailhouse Rock thing, and he was like in that the pinball wizard pose, and he had his jacket in his hand, his legs were turned in, and he had that whole thing. And I went, oh, that's interesting. So I developed Pinball Wizard for the Louts with that image. Don't ask. There's an insane person in here.
No, but that's how you become creative. You see something, an iconic picture or something, and say, this will work.
This is what it should look like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great. And then at the end of the run in La Jolla, they said to me, okay, you can embellish Sensation, and maybe Pinball Wizard should be a little bit bigger, and maybe we'll do another second act dance thing. And I went, okay, great. So I got their seal of approval. They knew that I was coming from a different place. I wasn't coming from like a concert, technical dance world. I was coming from mannerisms, social dancing, and stuff like that.
And winning for that. You won, right?
And winning for
You won your Tony Award for that.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
All right. It's got to be a dream, like I said. You're looking back at your Broadway debut in Seesaw, or in Rachel Lilly saying, I'm out of here.
I'm out of here.
But then you win a Tony Award.
Yeah.
Just like when do you remember anything about that night when your name was called and you go up there?
It was so glorious. I was in shock. I don't even remember getting to the stage.
Yeah.
I think I flew to the stage. It was amazing. I know I thank Des and I thank Pete. And I thank my wife
Yeah.
for being my little angel, getting me through all this stuff. I don't know who else I thank. Of course, I probably thank the cast and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but I don't even know what I said. And I remember Sarah Jessica and Matthew in the elevator that night. They were in the audience. I think Sarah was presenting and stuff, and I got to know them. And then I did How to Succeed with them. So it's such an incredible world and life that I've kind of lived.
But there's nothing like the theater, is there? Seriously,
No.
I mean, that's where you've started.
Yeah.
That's where you always come home to.
Absolutely.
What is it? What is it about the theater and live performing and just being in that rehearsal room? What is it for you?
You know what? It's home.
Yeah.
It's like home for me. I feel comfortable in it.
Yeah.
And now I'm secure in it. Now it was like, this is, I could do this. This is amazing. And, I've directed Dream and I've, done other things and stuff like that. I don't know if I was really ready. I wasn't thinking in that same frame of mind that you're supposed to think, second guess everything and everything has a meaning. What are you doing that for? And why is that going? I mean, I did some beautiful choreography in Dream.
I love Dream.
I have to say, it was gorgeous. But when you think about it, there was John Pizzarelli and there's Johnny Mercer. Why didn't I make John Pizzarelli the Johnny Mercer figure in this whole thing? He would have tied everything together.
When you bring Dream back, you can do this all over again with John Pizzarelli.
You're right.
But
I mean, but what a find he was.
Oh, everybody you had in
I
that.
know.
You
It
had
was
Margaret Whiting.
Susie Meisner. And
Everybody.
And what's it?
Leslie Ann Warren,
Leslie
you
Ann
had,
Warren,
and
right.
Brooks Ashmanskas. I didn't realize the tapper he was.
Oh, my God.
What did you put all those kids through?
Tapper, singer, actor. He's incredible. He's incredible.
All right, then there's this little show that I think you're here, featured in here, Wicked. How did Wicked happen for you?
You know what? Again, I was doing it. I was doing no, I wasn't. It wasn't industrial. I was doing a cruise ship, and I was about to go to Germany. And Marsha Goldberg calls me up and says, "We've done 3 workshops of Wicked, and we're doing another workshop, but we're only doing it of the first act because we had to take care of some things. And Joe doesn't have a choreographer yet." So I said to Joe, "I think you should meet Wayne." And I went.
This is Joe Mantello.
This is Joe Mantello. Sorry, you name drop. I'll just do the first name base. Saw it, and I was blown away. And I'm a Wizard of the Wizard of Oz freak. I mean, all through my childhood, every time they played it, I was in there on my floor watching it and stuff like that. So we went out for coffee, and Joe said, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's brilliant." I said, "But I don't know where the choreography is." He said, "Neither do I." And I said, "Okay, well, but you have 3 principals and you have a world that they live in. So there's got to be movement somewhere in that world. I don't know if it's dance, but it's movement. And there's transitions and we're creating atmospheres." And he went, "All right, you want to do this?"
All over coffee.
At the last minute. I mean, I loved Joe. I loved Joe.
Yeah.
I mean, we were connected from the beginning. I mean, it was so amazing. We had a great collaboration. We joined at the hip, and you can tell, it's like a seamless piece of
I was going to say,
art.
There's a seamlessness.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen in every show.
No.
When you have a different director choreographer.
Exactly.
But Wicked is seamless.
Yeah, seamless. And he was like, "You do it." And, I'd kind of like rough it out, and then he'd go, that. Could you fix that?
Yeah.
Could you make it this? And I go, "Got it." Incredible collaboration. Incredible collaboration.
Well, let's just talk about the success of Wicked. I mean,
Yeah, who
does
knew?
it? No, exactly. I mean, if we could figure out Fred Ebb always said, if we could figure out the formula, we'd all know it. But
Who knew? We
what
thought
do
it
you
was
think
going
it
to be a
is?
bomb.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then we were terrified that it was going to go into the Gershwin.
Yeah.
Because we thought, no one's going to come fill those seats. Now we say, when we see each other, "Don't you wish the theater was a little bit bigger?"
You're sitting there when you were in Seesaw thinking, oh my God,
exactly.
what a full circle moment for you to have just started on Broadway at Seesaw at the Uris, which is now the Gershwin, and to have this phenomenal show that runs there. But I want to go back to dancing before we end. What's it like for you as the director choreographer to sit in the music box and watch how much joy Dancin is bringing to so many people?
Right.
Not just dance, not just
No,
people who
I
like
know.
dance.
I know.
But just there are so many people who've never never really heard of Bob Fosse,
Right.
and are coming to the show and just falling in love with it, what it means to you, Wayne?
Well, you know what? It's infectious, and I think
Yeah.
I was so terrified that we like lost our window of opportunity because I started 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I got the phone call, and then I started like, thinking in my brain how is this going to happen? What do I need to do to bring it into the 21st century? It's going to be 2021, 22, 23, whatever that was. And I just kept on going, oh my God, it's just keep on going on and on. Is it ever going to happen? I actually think, for some reason, it's just landed on Broadway in the most perfect time. I think people want the joy and the freedom to just see life and dance and choreography, and it just happens to be Bob Fosse's choreography, which is brilliant in itself. It was a hit when it was 45 years ago. It's Bob. You haven't seen any of Bob's work in a while. Of course, he's very successful in Annie's interpretation of Chicago, which is great. But this is a different Bob. This is the explosive Bob, and then the intense Bob, and the cerebral Bob, and it's just all of him tied up into this show. It's exhilarating, and it's like almost like I can't breathe because I even sit there and go, oh my God, this is just so much. It's so joyful, and I do feel it from the audience. It could be a quiet audience in the beginning, or it could be like a rock concert in the beginning. But wherever it goes, it gets to that crazy ending where they're like on their feet and screaming. And you go, oh my God, then it really is moving people.
Did you have moments during like rehearsals or whatever when like Bob was in the room, like you just felt his presence there?
Oh
and Gwen.
My God, all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. I think that's why I'm so emotional in the show. And I'm better now because I've controlled myself. But in the beginning, I would cry every time I did like what I did, and I gave it to someone, and they would do it, and it was like amazing, different and amazing. I start crying. I watched Manny and Jacob do that tap number. I was a mess for a week. I could not get through that number without like bawling. I mean, I just feel like, even though I don't know what people say, I really don't care what people say, but I know in my heart, I did what he wanted me to do. He trusted me. And I just feel like they get the sense and just the feeling of what we felt when we did it.
Yeah.
And it's not a presentational kind of performance kind of a thing. They have to trust who they are. They have to do it for themselves. And then the audience kind of goes to them. But if you present it in a full out, I don't know, performance way, it takes away the energy and the intenseness when it gets so much physically over exaggerated.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I want to take a full circle moment here. So when you did Dancin originally, it premiered out of town, was in Boston at the Colonial Theater.
Yeah.
Well, there's that marble table off the lobby. Now, some of the fans watching at Broadway World know that marble table is still there. And that's where Rodgers and Hammerstein wrote the song of Oklahoma to go into Away We Go.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
And Bob Fosse chips the table. There's chips all on that marble table.
Got up on it and tapped it.
He did the tap number that's in your show.
Oh my
so
God.
Everybody who plays there runs their...
It's not like full on 42nd Street tap. It's very kind of like we had nail heads on the tips of our shoes and nail heads on the bottom of our sole, and we just did flutters. So it was all kinds of stuff like that. Every once in a while we do like a little break, but it was all all rhythms and it's ridiculous.
Well, because of those nails, there are a million chips in the table. Now I know where they're from. They weren't from regular tap shoes.
So exactly.
If you go up there, everybody who plays there runs their hand around that table.
Oh my God!
To catch the spirit of Bob Fosse.
I haven't been up there since then.
Yeah. Well, you need to take a trip up there. For one of your shows, or just wander into the lobby. Tell them who you are.
Okay.
Wayne, it is always a pleasure, my friend, for dropping by.
I'm so happy we got to do this. I've known you for years.
I've known you forever.
I know, but it was like we're running, and I'm always like, yeah. And you're always so supportive to me, so thank you.
So if you want to see a Broadway show, look no further than Dancin, Bob Fosse's Dancin at the Music Box Theater.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you. Same here.